guys, it's Kevin again, and in this video I'm going to be reviewing to the originals, Season 1, Episode 12, Dance Back from the Grave. And this episode was a little bit different from the other ones. We got a lot of important information, a lot of flashbacks in this episode, which I did like. My only complaint was I wish we would have seen this Papa Tunde character more than we did, because he was a really interesting character. I thought he would definitely be on more episodes, but he wasn't. And I enjoyed his character, though. I definitely thought that they did a really great job portraying his character. But we found out a lot of stuff in this episode that I really enjoyed. So let's just get to it, because I love this episode. I think ever since it's come back from its hiatus, the show is getting better and better every episode. I really like the way it's going. And yes, I miss Davina, but I think they're going to resurrect her. In fact, they do bring it up in this episode briefly, but I think there's sort of a hint that Davina is coming back. I do. I have this hint that Davina is coming back, and that's what I think. And I'm going to get to that once we get to that part of the episode, but let's just get to the episode. So we're in this graveyard. We're now with a newly not dead Celeste. She walks with the other praise witches. She lights a candle at a headstone. Then we see a flashback to New Orleans. And at a voodoo witch demonstration, the witch says they are all there to see Papa Tunde. This guy who practices ancestral magic and has a huge wicked yellow snake. He warns they have been overrun by pirates and vampires. And he shows them his sacrificial magic, and that he uses to vanquish enemies and promise to punish their enemies if they accept him as a leader and his family into the coven. So Elijah and Klaus meet back in the day, but we're still in the flashback here, and I like the way they did this with this flashback because it was actually pretty cool. We got to see how Papa Tunde, affected their lives earlier before we actually met the guy in real life. Because they really built up his character, and this is a character I've never seen before, so they did a really nice job with doing that. So Elijah and Klaus, they meet back in the day with some human mafia representatives to negotiate a peace. They also happen to be werewolves. They explain that originals can't be killed by their bites, so they need to negotiate. Elijah says they run the New Orleans port, and they will help them bring in liquor during Prohibition. And Papa Tunde interrupts the meeting and says he's the king of the city and represents the French Quarter witches. He gives them a gift and leaves. Klaus opens the box to find the mayor's head. So now we're in the present. Marcel meets with some of his crew. They complain that Klaus is late, but then the original finally shows up and has brought Thierry along. He says he's pardoned him for this crime of staying one of their own. Everyone greets him happily. Klaus smiles, and Marcel comments as if Mystic Falls went well. FYI, he finally, he was with Caroline, so I liked how they did bring that up. I didn't know if they'd bring that up, because I was thinking, how are these really going to connect? And I like that they did bring that up, just for a little bit of time, but I like that they brought that up. He tells them that with Davina gone, the witches will soon be powerless. So this is why I'm thinking they're going to bring Davina back. If the witches are powerless, then the witch part is, then Haley's technically gone. Because Haley's a witch, so obviously they can't kill Haley off. So the thing is, I think they basically are going to bring Davina back eventually. That's probably not going to be for a while, but I'm thinking they're going to bring her back. So Klaus asks Diego to lead a witch rousting in the quarter. Marcel doesn't want to go along and says he's taking a personal day. And of course, he's still grieving over Davina, so he's upset. And then Elijah and Rebekah walk to the quarter, and he thinks Klaus is being good. But she explains that she was the one who got him to release Thierry. She tells him that she's still investigating where the power from the ritual went in. She says she'll find out who has it and broker a treaty. She says she wants it to deal with Klaus. Elijah isn't happy with her plotting and says Klaus is behaving. Oh, we just read this. Klaus nags Marcel. She says she wants it to deal with Klaus. Elijah isn't happy with her plotting and says Klaus is behaving. She reminds him that it's a phase and that he always blows up and daggers them. He asks her to not provoke him even if she doesn't support him. So Klaus nags Marcel for pouting and shirking his duties. He tells him he's wallowing in sorrow over Davina. Klaus says his grief is boring him. Diego shows up, tells them there's a problem. He says they went to hassle the witches, found 2 of their own laid out dead. Marcel looks at it, then walks away. Marcel tells him the mark left around them is bad mojo and they need to stay out of it. He advises the other vampires to leave it alone, but Klaus says he'll find out who did it and punish them. So Thierry meets up with Rebekah and shows her the same symbol on the ground. She says it's the mark of a sacrificial witch who she knew long ago, but she doesn't know why it's there now. Then Papa Tunde appears. I love the way they just had him appear. It was really cool. He calls her name. Rebekah is shocked and says it's not possible. He chokes her out, speaks a curse as he does so. Then he pulls out this bone knife, cuts her head, veins appear across her face. She pales and cries out in pain as he lowers her down to her knees and slices her. That scene was just very, very graphic. It was very graphic and it was really cool as well. I mean, it wasn't cool, but it was really graphic, and I enjoyed the way they introduced Papa Tunde, because you saw right away he's a real force to be reckoned with. So Elijah tells Klaus he had hoped never to see that symbol again, and Klaus says he will kill whoever it is using, like he did the other person who used in the past. Klaus tells Diego to bring him the head of whoever did it, and Diego tells him the other vamps are terrified of the vampire-killing witches. None of the other vampires want to fight alongside him, and Klaus says he'll handle himself, and he walks out. So Cammy calls Sophie, but gets no answer. Marcel comes in, she holds out a bottle threateningly and tells him she's on vervain. He says he's having witch problems and needs Sophie's advice. Marcel sits out a bar, pours a drink. He tells her that he lost Davina. She assumes Klaus killed her, and he says that it wasn't him. It was a crazy ritual that cost her life. He throws his glass and shatters it and starts crying. Cammy tells him she's sorry, and he says he is too. At this point, I thought, as I said last week, Cammy's character is kind of useless. Yes, but she is, a nice character. She's not an annoying character. She's only annoying when she's, talking about Klaus. That's when she annoys me. Elijah finds Haley looking over Davina's drawings. She says he's been avoiding her. He tells her that Klaus gets mad when they're together, and she says that Klaus is a dick, so he wants to be a good brother, so he can't hang out with her. And she says she gets it, but that's a crappy deal. So Marcel gets a text from Klaus, ignores him. Cammy asks why he puts up with El Presidente, and he asks why she's interested. He thinks she's looking for revenge, and tells her it won't end well. He draws out the symbol on the napkin, shares a story about Klaus. He says he had just come back to New Orleans after serving in World War I. Then we get another flashback back to World War I. We see Marcel in uniform, Rebekah telling him off because he left her in a box for 52 years. Klaus greets him warmly, calls him a war hero, and hugs him. Elijah is there as well, greets him nicely as well. Klaus tells him about Papa Tunde, and now Elijah wants to negotiate rather than go to war. Elijah says that since Marcel has seen the horrors of war, he would side with negotiation. Klaus says Tunde is a charlatan. Just then, Papa Tunde comes into the vampire compound. Klaus greets him in the sidekicks. He offers him woman and booze and tells him to enjoy himself. Marcel tells Cammy that he didn't understand why he invited him into their home, but he says it was all about evaluating weaknesses before he goes in for the kill. And Cammy calls Klaus a sociopath, and she tells him that Davina was powerful without being a monster. Which is true. Davina was never a monster. She was very powerful, and she didn't really know how to control it. So that's the truth about Davina. Clearly, when we're seeing, clearly Davina was a good person. She just did not know how to control her power. That's the problem with Davina. So Papa Tunde then cuts open his snake, bleeds it all over Rebekah's prune body. She's looking pretty grim. He has her in the middle of his symbol, touches her head. Celeste comes in. He tells her that he has all of Rebekah's power coursing through him and will use it to destroy Klaus. And then she smiles. So Marcel asks Cammy if she's going to open the bar. She jokes that she's worried he'll eat her customers. Klaus calls and tells him to meet him at the cauldron. But Marcel refuses to join him and says he has his own leads. Marcel hangs up mad. Sophie shows up, Klaus chokes her out and tells her to explain the attacks on vampires, and that scene was really intense. Sophie at this point I think is going to be the next character that dies. I have this feeling. So Elijah finds Haley, tells her that he's worried about Rebekah not answering her phone. She says she may be conspiring with others that go to confront Thierry, and Elijah demands to know why his sister is interested in him. He tries to dissemble, but Elijah slams him against the wall. Says they were jumped by a warlock. Elijah's pissed that he left her for dead. He tells him he left her at Warlock 57, and he begs Elijah not to tell Klaus. Haley wants to come along, and Elijah agrees, but she says she can't leave his sight. So Marcel tells Cammy he really liked her, but wanted to spare her the vampire drama. She says she's in it anyway. She asks to hear more about Papa Tunde. He says the warlocks wanted territory and money, and when Klaus didn't get it, he went on a rampage, killing humans, werewolves, and witches that opposed him. Elijah negotiated a truce, but Klaus showed up in his place. Klaus tells him he's the non-negotiating brother. Tunde says he doesn't know his name, his power, not his name, his power, and Klaus says he thinks his twin sons are the channels for his power. He asks what would happen if the sons he depends on were struck down. He has a flunky bringing a box. Klaus flings it open, shows him their heads. Tunde says he will kill him for it, and Klaus says he can't be killed and rips out the warlock's eyes. Cammy's horrified, but Marcel says it's just business. Papa Tunde comes in and tells Marcel he's always in Klaus's shadow. He tells him to come from behind it and die like a man. Marcel tells Cammy to go, and Tunde attacks him and tells him he's channeling power of an original. He begins to speak a curse when Cammy hits the warlock with a bottle, throws her across the room, and Marcel fights back. So Sophie tells Klaus the mark is of sacrificial magic, and that the more vamps he kills, the more power he will have. Cammy calls Klaus, tells him there's a lunatic witch doctor killing Marcel, and Klaus tells her to run. Haley and Elijah find Rebekah in a witchy coma, says because she can't die, she is like an endless source of power from the warlock. Tunde told Marcel he knows what he did to his family. He knows how fond Klaus is of his son. Klaus is there and pulls him off Marcel, but Tunde throws Klaus away. So Sophie tells Elijah that he needs to add another component like I knew to break the spell. He hangs up, asks Haley if she'll donate some blood. She agrees. He bites her wrist. She drips it onto the mark, which dissolves it. Tunde goes to attack Klaus with his bone knife just as Elijah steps into the sacrificial circle and grabs his sister out of it. Tunde weakens. Klaus throws him aside. The warlock runs away. Cammy asks if Marcel is okay. He says he needs blood and asks her to go get it. He can't control her. She offers her neck, and Marcel drinks greedily. So then a recovered Rebekah attacks Thierry and tells him he is a coward. Elijah snaps his neck in impatience, tells her that conspiring against Klaus was a reason she was taken. She says Klaus constantly robs her of any chance for happiness while pursuing her own. Elijah tells her he won't stand her or Klaus, and she tells him he's a hypocrite and his feelings for Haley will tear him apart. That is true. I gotta agree with Rebekah there. Most times I would agree with Elijah, but I gotta agree with Rebekah. Elijah is a hypocrite for, even though we want Haley and him together, he's a hypocrite. We can't deny he's a hypocrite. So then Rebekah waits in Sophie's shop, and Marcel comes in. He tells her that Papa Tunde's symbol is all over the cauldron. She says bring back memories, and then we're back to the 1920s. Rebekah finds Marcel drunk. He says he sought out the most dangerous witch he could find, and she asks why. Marcel said that he did it for her so Tunde would chase Klaus off or keep him occupied so he could pursue making amends and romance with her. She asks if he would risk it all and tear them apart for her. He says he did and would do it again. Rebekah tells him that there was only one man that Klaus fears, and their father, Michael, who runs vampires. She says if a witch can help their find their father, he'll come. Klaus will run. They nod a witch across the room. Haley looks at sketches Davina did of Celeste. She goes to find Elijah and watches the vampire milling around. He goes, so then we see Klaus. He speaks to the group. He tells them they had an uprising against him and they failed and he forgave them. And he says if any of them want to leave, he says there's a war, they will fight alongside him or leave. And then Thierry says he doesn't know Klaus anything, and just as soon as he says that, many others follow, but some stay. So then Marcel tells Klaus he thought he would lose more vampires than he did, and Klaus says they have no room for slackers and cowards. He tells Marcel that Sophie will help them, but she disagrees. And he demands to know why Papa Tunde has been resurrected. Tell him it's the harvest and that someone should jack the power and use it to bring back 4 different witches. Marcel asks if they get the power back, if they can save Davina, but Klaus redirects it back to Papa Tunde. Again, we're seeing if they can save Davina or not. He asks how he ends him. Sophie explains if he blocks him from killing more vampires, he'll lose his power source. Klaus and Marcel find that Tunde is busy killing off as many vampires as he can. Celeste asks Papa Tunde if it's done. He tells her his bone blade now has enough power to do damage to even an original. He says there's one last sacrifice to be made, and she slits his throat. And that's how the episode ends. So overall, I really enjoyed this episode. We're starting to figure out a few things. I would have wanted Papa Tunde to live. He seemed like a very big character, and I would have actually wanted to see him live, but he didn't. Also, they're starting to give hint that Davina might be coming back, which I do think she will be resurrected because Daniel Campbell is still on set, so obviously she's resurrected. And also, what's going to happen with Klaus's army now? know, his army's pretty small now, so we'll have to see what happens there too. So I really enjoyed this episode. I thought it was fantastic, and I really enjoyed all the flashbacks we got. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Okay, bye!